Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back to Golden Creatives Talk. On this show, we explore the alchemy that happens when vision meets mastery. Today, we're diving into the visual soul of the publishing world. My guest today is Sophia Chunn. Sophia is a multidisciplinary designer, multidimensional designer, with a background in print design. Based in North Carolina, her work spans brand identity, web design, and most importantly for our conversation today, stunning book cover design. She has a gift for taking abstract concepts and grounding them in visuals that feel both timeless and modern. She currently works at Penguin Random House and has previously worked for Simon & Schuster and Macmillan. But on a personal note, Sophia is the woman who saved me from myself. When I was deep in the trenches of writing Brown Beyond Borders and editing it, I tried to design my own cover on Canva, and it was a struggle. That is not my language. I realized I needed a golden creative who actually understood the journey I was describing. And I found Sophia on I Need a Book Cover, and she transformed my messy ideas into the wonder you see on shelves today, which is Brown Beyond Borders. Today, we're talking about the business of books, the designer-author relationship, and how to brief a creative when you don't speak the language of design. Sophia, welcome to the show, and thank you.
I'm happy to be here. I mean, I really resonated with this project from the very beginning, so I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Oh gosh, I can only I was struggling with this as I was sort of editing and in the final throes of my book, and by that point I had already known I was going to go public and publish. And I was doing all the things on Canva, and then I was like, what am I doing? Like I don't have the bandwidth for this. I'm still, strategizing, promotion, etc. And then I started on the hunt for book cover designers, which, by the way, not easy. Y'all
No.
are in high demand.
Well, I kind of feel like there's I've always felt like there's so many of us to go around. Um so it's interesting to hear from the author perspective that like it feels like everybody. I mean, I can see the whole like lots of people being unavailable. So like I could understand why it would become difficult. I feel like my issue as an author would be there's so many good designers and I'm like, how do I pick one? How do I pick one and how do I know that it's going to be which is interesting to hear from a designer. But sometimes, I get anxiety about like, okay, am I communicating my ideas, in a way that's understandable? And are we going to be on the same wavelength? Like, are you going to be picking up what I'm putting down? So we're like, I feel like everybody has that. Even if your entire job is centered around understanding how to communicate visuals and communicate how to bring something that doesn't currently exist into existence. So it's surprising to hear you say it was difficult to find one.
It was. I actually was in a panic by the time I discovered I Need a Book Cover. Somehow the site did not appear to me at the beginning of my search. But I guess there was a criteria that was important for me because of the topic of the book, Brown Beyond Borders, and it is a biracial memoir. And there's even sort of a chapter that is dedicated specifically to the US educated brown immigrant woman. I needed somebody who was probably female, had some kind of connection to, Black and brown lives or living, and also maybe had some awareness of the immigrant experience as well. So that kind of narrows it down. I mean, if I'm going to be frank,
No, it
the
really
world
does.
of publishing, yeah, okay,
Yes,
okay,
yeah,
so
yeah. I would say like probably like, okay, there's lots of great designers, okay, but then when you start to actually care about them not being white men, the pool gets considerably smaller. And happy for them, they're good, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think even as a professional existing inside publishing, I can count on one hand the number of like Black or brown women designers that I have encountered. So I've worked at, in some capacity, 4 out of 5 of the largest publishers in the country. So that's saying something. And certainly there's people that I haven't interacted with that exist. But all that to say, they're harder to find. Whereas it's not as hard to find white people and white men specifically in design.
Yeah. In book cover design for this literature for this audience. And I think I've probably met the other 4 designers that you can count on your hand. And all of them were,
by the way.
I mean, I have to say their credentials and their designs look great. And, I did recognize some of the covers as well that they had worked on. So, when I had reached out to them, they were just sort of like, sorry, I'm either not accepting indie authors, I'm not accepting, and we'll touch on that, by the way. Or I'm just not accepting any work right now because I'm just, busy to the hilt. In fact, I think for the majority of them, it was really, I'm just so busy, like I just don't have the time. What is the most common cry for help that you hear from indie authors? And by the way, you can be honest, like, Cynthia, when you called me, I was like,
I mean, like, if you mean like cry for help, as in like you need like a professional,
yes,
to like come in now. This is a difficult question to answer because I feel like it's hard to specialize in something that you don't specialize in, right? So I just kind of feel like most authors could probably use a cover designer. And so the cry for help for me is like anything that I see that the author is doing already on their own. And usually it's Canva or somewhere else, which I think is great. And it's a great entry point. To me, that's like that you're having to do that yourself. And that's always been kind of the big selling point of traditional publishing, whether or not people actually see the tangible benefits of the selling point is another conversation, but that you're supposed to have like a team of like marketing people, a team of designers, and a team of editorial, and those are all people that like went to college for this thing. They've dedicated their life to this area of expertise, and they're dedicating that expertise to the service of your book. And so, I find it equal parts admirable and stressful when I see like indie authors, and I mean, y'all are always on top of it. Like you've got like your graphics and like your quotes and like your campaigns, and you're hiring illustrators, and you're doing all these, like, so many different things that indie authors like take on their own. And maybe it's crazy of me, but I've always been of the mind that the author should be able to focus on authoring. So whenever I see like all of the workload that indie authors kind of assume in order to pursue the success of their book, that always makes me feel like, oh, like I'd like to I'd like to help them. I'd like to be a part of that and take something off of their plate. You know, there's been a couple projects that I've seen just like encountered out in the world, like received their advertising basically for their
Mm-hmm.
book, uh, and thought to myself like, oh, like I'd love to do a cover for that, or I'd love to work on that,
Mm-hmm.
or equally.
Oh no. Oh, we lost you. Okay, she'll be back. I'll just tell you for context. I had spent about 60 days looking for a cover designer, and I felt so lucky when I stumbled on Sophia's profile. And when she actually, I reached out to her via email, and there were a lot of things that I didn't know. And this is going to be the next question that I ask her. There were a lot of things that I just really plain didn't know about the process. I didn't really know what kind of budget I should have. And yes, I did, Google searches, etc. But there's a lot of information out there. So I was just blabbing while we lost you. Can you hear me? Are you there? Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. Hey, can you hear me? Oh, we lost her again. Okay. So, like, I didn't have some basics. I didn't know what kind of budget, because the information that's out there, it ranges. And for some book cover designers, it can go into like the high four figures, nearing on five figures. And I didn't have the budget, a five-figure budget, and or a high four-figure budget. So I really, that was one of the things that I knew she would probably ask me, what's your budget? And, that I would have to sort of tell her, like, I don't really have a budget, because I don't really understand sort of the framework within your working and delivering your product. So, those were a couple of the questions. The other thing, back to the cry for help element, was also I didn't really have a vocabulary to describe what it was that I was going for as far as the aesthetic was concerned. And this is what we will talk about when Sophia comes back, which is, I don't speak design language. So I didn't know if what I wanted was bold and modern or if I wanted something. And in fact, I still wouldn't really be able to translate into words like what the design aesthetic is of this cover. Um, and one of the things that I really loved about talking to her and having our first conversation, um, was that she just kind of asked me like regular questions, regular questions that didn't require my knowledge of how a visual designer would interpret words like modern. So, which I feel like modern can kind of represent sort of a lot of different aesthetics, or even like vintage can represent sort of a range of design aesthetic as well. So actually, one of the questions that she asked me was to share with her, the covers, like some of the covers of books that I enjoyed, which I actually like because I'm surrounded by books. It doesn't look like it, but I actually have loads of books, and I had pulled up a couple of books from my desktop, and I just showed her, like, this is what I like about this cover. I like this kind of lettering. This is what I like about that cover. I like, the way that this is positioned or these color schemes. So that's the kind of thing that we talked about. And when she comes back, I've asked her to share some of the different variations of designs that she had developed for my book cover, so that you can see like the range. I was shocked, and I'll probably bring this up too. I was shocked by the range of design variation with Sophia's work and her interpretation of what I liked about the various covers that I looked at, what I thought the book title should represent. And I'm going to share with you all kind of a funny story afterwards when we had started to narrow down the cover design idea. And I sort of like threw her a curveball, which she handled very gracefully. So I hope that she can dial in pretty quickly so that we can get her talking about some of the, trials of working with indie authors as well, as opposed to working with uh, traditionally published authors, where she then gets to sort of work within the framework of a world that understands sort of those needs, those expectations, as well as those timelines, because those are all, elements that kind of go into the publishing process. Oh, golly, looks like she's kind of lost. So, a few things that I wanted to cover with her included not only sort of like the design process, but as well like just the range of um, visual and interpretation that a book cover designer works with when they get involved. All right. And she's back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yay. I was just dithering on about how it must have been very difficult for you to work with. Well, you're probably used to it, but I know that I was the first, I think, curveball that I threw you was when we emailed or I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I'm looking at this. And I had already been like rejected by like all 6 other Black and brown female book cover designers. And I was like, like any availability. And you came back and you asked me, what's your budget? And I was just telling viewers that like I didn't even know. I don't know anything about your world, right? And I didn't really get into those conversations even with other book cover designers. So I definitely did not want to offend you. And I don't want you to announce any numbers, but like, what are the sorts of things that like an indie author would have to think about as they're preparing their budget or thinking about like allotting some money to their book cover design?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think first and foremost, I'll say that I know I'm biased as a cover designer, but I feel like your cover is like probably your largest, most prominent, most consistent, and
It's my billboard.
yeah, it's like that's your flagship of marketing.
Yeah.
And so I think it's worth investing in, um, especially because, like I said, like you said, it's the face of your book.
Yeah.
It's the face of your story, the spirit of your story, the spirit of whatever you're trying to say. It's the thing that calls to your audience. I mean, it's a really important part of
Yes.
the success of your book, basically. Um,
Yes.
and so just having that in mind, as you approach the juncture where you're looking at hiring someone professionally to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, bottom line, any designer that does work with self-publishing authors, indie authors, knows that y'all usually have less money than a conglomerate, right? So,
Right.
at least for me, I have in my head a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I think for authors, it's important for you to have in your head some sort of maximum of
Right.
like, this is how much I'm willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can have a minimum of this is how much I'm willing to accept. And
Right.
I feel like that's kind of how I always approach things. because if I'm seeking to get the same amount of money from a single individual who's doing this entire operation by themselves that I would from a large company, I'm not going to be able to work on the projects that I want to work on. So for me, doing indie work and self-pub work is really like for the love of the game, to be honest. And so I have just kind of a minimum of like, I think about the work and the thought that I put into the covers and the revisions and thinking about the book and reading the manuscript. I'm like, what's the minimum amount I feel comfortable getting paid for that? And then usually what ensues with my self-pub clients is just some sort of like back and forth. The way that I do it is I have a sliding scale, but that sliding scale starts with your maximum. So if you tell me like my maximum is this amount, I can say to you, okay, for that amount, here's the amount of work that I can give you for that amount.
That's totally fair. I'm upset that poor Sophia's connection seems to be bopping out. But that's really fair because, like I was saying, when I had done some initial research into this, the range was crazy, and I'm about to tell her as well. The range was in the 2 figures all the way up into the high 4 figures, and I mean, obviously, the high 4 figures was like, ain't no way, because I don't even know if this is my debut book. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to sell that number of books. And in fact, I think there's a statistic out there that says that indie authors typically, the majority of indie authors don't sell 100 copies of their book. So if we're looking at, say, $10,000 and $10 a pop, and I'm just using that for simple math, that means you're selling 1,000 copies, or even if you're selling it at $20 a pop, that's 500 copies. So I knew about that statistic as well going into this. And of course, the reason why I'm in this work is not, it's more of a labor of love than, it's definitely not a get rich quick scheme. So I just knew that, like, okay, between like 2 figures and 4 figures, I would appreciate if I could find a designer who's in the maximum, like a high 3-figure zone, and then potentially, additional figures for other things. And that was one of the things that we talked about as well. She asked me some questions like, okay, are we just looking at an ebook cover? And I said, no, we're going to be looking at paperback as well, because she would have to factor in, not only developing the face of the book, but then taking into consideration, and we had a lot of iterations on the paperback, because all of these self-publishing websites, from Amazon to Ingram Spark to Draft to Digital to Lulu to, I feel like I've looked into all of them. They all have different specs, or I think Sophia referred to them as mechanic. Hey, Sophia.
I'm going to turn off. I turned off my camera, hoping maybe that'll help connection.
Okay. Cool. So then people get to just see me like dither on. I was just telling folks that, like, well, when I had done my research as I was looking for you, that the budget, what based on my research, the budget really ranged from like a high 2 figures.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, you know what? I don't need somebody else to give me their Canva design.
Yes, right.
Right. So it was high 2 figures all the way up into the high 3 figures. And high 3 figures was kind of high 3 figures, high 4 figures. So that was not probably going to do it for me either, as I mentioned. So as we continued talking and she gave me her estimate, which I won't share with you, um, we talked about the various things. So it was like, I want it in at least two formats. She did explain that if we were to go into a third format, and a format being a hardcover book, and I had no intention of going hardcover, that like it would increase the price because you've got your ebook, which is just the face, you've got your paperback, which includes, the face, the spine, and the back, which has its own design. And then with a hardcover, you've got, oh, here's an example. With a hardcover, you've got, the hard cover, but you've got these inside flaps too. Um, so and maybe like later on down the road, I'll be checking out um, a hardback book, and at which point Sophia and I will reconnect, and I will be paying her, for kind of a new design. Yes, it'll be kind of a design upgrade, but it will still be a new design in the end because she'll have to be adding those different components and adjusting them to fit into the whole everything. Hey, welcome to Indie Life, where we just kind of, make it happen. So, Sophia, I just kind of like walked folks through our experience that like I basically had looked things up on the internet and noticed that it ranged from like a high two-figure amount
Yes. Which is
to
usually
a
red flag, by the way. If anybody's charging $25, I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Don't do it.
I would agree, at that like if if you've decided to get a professional to help you, then don't don't go there. I mean, like just the simple breakdown. It's like I don't know what minimum wage is in the States right now, but if it's like $15, you're basically saying it should take an hour and a half of that
Right.
professional's time,
For
right? And it's sort of like
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're either underpaying or uh
you're
what you're
getting low quality work.
what you're gonna get is $25 worth of a
Yeah.
cover.
And the other range was high four figures, and I was like, I'm sure that it's an awesome design, and maybe it's even an awesome package. I don't know, because I didn't have that in my budget, so I was like, if we could keep it in sort of like the you know like high three-figure range, maybe. And you explained to me sort of the different prices also mean because the output would be different, right? Like you explained
Right.
to me, there's a price for just an ebook
Yes.
cover. There's
Yes.
the price for the paperback plus a
Yeah.
hardcover.
Yes. And that's something that I like, and I'm sure other designers who work with indie authors also probably do this, but I'm just going to speak for me. That's a pricing model that I developed
Mm,
after having the experience with indie authors because the way, if you're a designer who's traditionally working with like publishers, they just
hmm.
give you like a lump sum,
Right.
and they negotiate for, and usually you're not involved in the rest of the cover layout. That's not
Hmm.
usually something publishers will hire a designer for. But so they'll just give you a lump sum for like the design.
Hmm.
And so when I first kind of ventured into doing designs for indie authors, that was kind of one of the first things that I guess noticed a need for a change there, or an adaptation to the market where like, okay, it makes sense that authors that are self-publishing kind of would want to itemize things a little bit
Yeah.
more, um, just to give as much flexibility as possible for their budgets and their
Yes.
timelines and all of that stuff. So um, yeah, that's kind of something that I worked into my pricing and conversation from learning, like, and working with you guys, and kind
Yeah.
of trying to anticipate y'all's needs, and like your sort of the context of in which you're publishing and working with me. So yeah.
I really appreciate that. I was just telling listeners that one of the things that you had started out by designing, like concepting the ebook cover design,
Right.
which if you can pull that up, I hope it doesn't like kick you out of this call. Um, if you could put that up on screen, that would be awesome. Because I was just telling listeners that I may down the road, after I win my like Booker Prize, that I might go for a hardback book, like further down the line. But at this
Mhm.
stage, I knew it was just going to be ebook and paperback when we had talked. So we had talked about that kind of itemized version.
Right. Right. And a lot of people I talk to will also just start with the cover,
Yeah,
and just like, oh, I don't even know if I'm planning on printing it yet. I don't know if I'm pursuing a print run, um, which is totally fair, because there's so much, so many
yes,
readers that can be found just through ebook and like the online market, and so much of that is transforming um, now. So a lot of authors will tell me, like, I just want the cover for now, and we can explore, doing a print run later. And I think that
right.
being able to separate the cost of one from the other gives
Yeah.
them the flexibility to, um, you know, make decisions that make the most sense for their budget.
Yeah, I totally welcome that. And I had shared as well that, one of the statistics for indie authors, and I assume that this also like mostly applies to new indie authors, is that the majority of indie authors don't sell 100 copies of their book.
Yeah.
So if you think about it that way, if you're going to have, let's just say um, a $20 book, but you've already shelled out what is it, $1,000, like that's 500 copies that you haven't sold, right? So
Right.
it's like, oh my god, like those are the kinds of decisions that you're seeing indie authors handle.
Right. Yeah.
Are you able to share some of the different options? Because I really would love to share how I was amazed by the different visual interpretations you had of our conversation,
I'm trying to
our
pull it
initial
up right
conversation.
now.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
and I will continue trying
Okay,
while we move
okay.
on with the conversation, and then we can, like, when it finally appears magically on the screen, we can talk.
Ta-da. Cool. That works too. Well, one thing, so the first time I called you or we had a conversation, you actually said something that surprised me, which is you said something like, I don't usually have briefing calls with
Yeah,
my authors.
yeah.
So talk to me about that because I wouldn't have known what to brief you in writing. So
I feel like it's probably like, maybe 1 out of 5, um, who, like, I think it just depends on what kind of learner you are and what kind of like processor you are. It comes down to personality. So usually the people that um, feel more productive and feel like they're retaining more, I'm sure they're the ones that request the meetings, and the ones that don't. And so I always tell my clients, like, we can absolutely meet, but it isn't a part of my general workflow, because usually what I get from authors is like, as far as briefing goes, it's like, here's some covers I like, here's some covers I don't like, here's some colors I like, here's some colors I don't like,
uh-huh.
um, here's, usually here's the first chapter, and here's, um you know the tone that I want to convey, and sort of the aesthetic that I'm after. And they'll send me all of that, usually like in an email, and that'll be enough for me to work.
Oh, wow.
But then there are other authors that I think the reason that meetings can be helpful is to talk through, because sometimes it's easier to kind of uh, bounce ideas off of each other, especially if you're not 100% sure what direction you want to go in. Like, you have a good handle on your story, and um, you as the author have a deep connection with what you've created, but not really sure how it should be visually represented outside of like just abstract, your abstract understanding of what you have created. Like our conversation where it was like, you know, this is not some literal uh dissecting of race. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's a memoir. It's discussing like my own relationship with my identity in different contexts, but it's not like we're not, slapping people in the face with research, or it's not about like, it's not a heavy-handed
Mm.
um you know what I'm trying to say. And so like
I
you were able
do.
yeah, so
It's like you read the book.
you were able to, I did you were able to articulate like this, I'm going to call it the spirit. You're able to articulate the spirit of the book, but not necessarily how it would look in a physical form.
Yes.
And I think in those situations it's a lot more helpful to just have a conversation,
Yes.
and outside of like, some basically a TLDR is some authors have very specific visuals already in mind,
Mm.
um, and some authors just more have a specific energy that they want to convey,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily that energy looks like this color or this cover, but just
Mm-hmm.
this is sort of the intangible emotions or thoughts or themes that I want people to be able to perceive in my cover. And I'm not sure what exactly that looks like, but I know what it feels like. Like, I know what it'll feel like.
Yeah.
Um, so those conversations, I think, are a lot easier to have in a meeting than trying back and forth to like, I don't know, it kind of feels like, like,
Oh
so.
gosh. You know me. I would have like sent you, like a 10-page dissertation on my feelings, and you would have been like, you know what? It would have just been easier if you sent me a voice memo. Thank you.
Right. And I think also when you're having conversations with someone and you're kind of talking through, I think sometimes your conversation will naturally lead you to a very, or not very specific, but a more concrete visual direction. Because I think
Mm,
there'll be certain like aesthetics or certain colors or certain textures that keep coming up in the conversation, or
mm,
connections that we can make while we're discussing the book to like colors. Like, of course, we know that golden is a color, but it's more of a concept in your book.
yeah. Yeah.
And so we're like, how do we, it seems like there could be a connection there between the concept of being golden and maybe something literally golden on the cover.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm.
think when you have conversations with authors who don't have a specific visual, just talking to them about their book and how they want it to make people feel, what they want people to take away from it, how they were feeling when they wrote it, what they were trying to achieve,
Yeah.
you start landing on specific visuals like, oh, I really wanted to feel like, these are just examples, I wanted to feel earthy, I wanted to feel light. Those are all things that can be applied both to writing and story and also visual, so we can start to make connections the more we talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I was blown away. It looks like you can't bring up the example, but I was blown away by the variety of uh, aesthetic directions that you took the cover design in. And I was only able to narrow it down to four. And I think there was Yeah, it was 4, and they were very different, and I had to actually even ask, like, my friends and people who kind of knew that this was, coming down the pipeline, like, which direction should I pick? Because, this was the world I was in. Oh, I've got 2 Sophias now. Hold on. Are you still there? Okay, now I have 1 Sophia again.
Yes, I'm here, and I'm going to try to share. I
Oh,
just
cool.
I just took a break from what I did while we were just talking just now is I joined on my phone and like totally restarted my laptop.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was waiting for everything to like repopulate on my laptop. I'm back on my laptop now,
Okay,
and I'm going to
cool.
try to share the comps.
Cool, yeah, because you call them comps. Yeah, so
Yes.
I call them directions. Which I loved. Okay. Share screen. Woohoo! Okay, that was the one. I loved that one. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, yes, this is the one. But then I went to the next one. This one didn't resonate so much based on our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is a perfect example of what working with an indie author is probably like, which is that I was also working on sort of like my promotion strategy. And so I realized slash learned that like I need to include certain keywords in my, I don't want to say book title, but somewhere on the cover of the book in order for it to trigger certain like to be approved, say on Amazon, right? So I added the words a biracial memoir because originally it was just Brown Beyond Borders, emerging into golden multidimensionality, which is already a mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I was like, "Hey, Sophia, do you want to add like 3 more paragraphs to my title?" And you
Well,
were like,
for the record,
"Okay."
I totally resent like the stuff that you guys have to do just for SEO purposes.
Yeah.
Just like
So do
as
I.
a creative myself, I'm like, why do we have to mess with art? Like just
Yeah.
let it be what it is. But just in the digital world, and especially like I said, the way that ebook and like online reading can drive so much of self-publishing authors like success. I
Yeah.
understand the need for it, and like SEO is such a big part of getting your book like seen, and we are unfortunately beholden to the algorithms. So yeah, but I understand like entering this pursuit of getting a cover, just wanting to focus on like I want a cover that represents my book, and
Yes.
not have to worry about like, is it searchable? How does it look
Mhm.
at thumbnail? And part of that is in hiring a designer, we can kind of advise that. And I do often think about those things as much as I
Mhm.
loathe to have to consider them. I do think of it as part of my job to kind of be like, which is why we kind of ended up having a little bit of a like, okay, what about this subtitle? What about this subtitle? Just to
Yes.
try to like keep it visually focused and like do a little bit of both. Like let's make it visually satisfying and accurate to your book, and let's also give it some SEO points and like make it
Yeah.
search, you know.
Yeah, so I dragged you through my thinking process, but let's move on because I actually eliminated this cover. I can't remember why exactly. This one I kind of liked, but I was the only one who kind of liked it. And maybe it's just because I was so like connected with the mission of my work that
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that it had this golden, auric sort of spiritual vibe. But um, I think also like you have to kind of get readers where they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked my folks if they like this one, and I kept it in the running, but it actually did not get the reception that I was hoping for. Another reason not to have an author designing their own cover.
I think this one is probably the most nonfiction.
Yeah.
I feel like whenever I come across a book that everything that's belonging on the cover, it's going to become a very type heavy.
Yeah.
I always try at least one where it's like, okay, let's just do just the type. Because I do feel like sometimes, maybe it's just me as a designer, but sometimes my instinct is to like, let's zhuzh it up. Let's make it cool. Let's make it special. Let's make it different and interesting. And, I have to bring myself back down to earth sometimes and remind myself to just like, okay, but what are the words? What do they say? How can you typeset them? When in doubt, type it out. Like, just what does it look like on the page?
Yeah.
And try doing as little with it as you can to make it successful. So I think this was kind of my attempt at that, where like the focus is really like the type.
I mean, for what it's worth, I liked it. I would probably buy this book, right? So, okay, let's move on to the next one. Oh, this one. This is the one actually, my first reaction to this, and please don't take this the wrong way. It goes back to all of the words. And then the other was, it just looked like intestines to me. So that I just eliminated that one. So what's the next one? Oh, the next one is
what ended up being the final with our changes.
Yeah. So, and I actually really like this one. My husband also really liked it, so it stayed in the running as well. Yeah. Oh, and I really like the last one too. And I guess that's for me. I think that was the hardest thing about this process, is that the 4 directions were so different. That, this is so different from the one right before it, from the orange one, and then from the very first one that I loved at first glance as well. That it was like, and I really like this one because it has all the words on it, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah. I think part of the reason that all of these ended up being so different, and this is a credit to your instincts. I was kind of channeling all of the things that I have felt as a Black biracial person, and trying to put that in visual form. So this one, at least I can say, was kind of born of, at least for me as a biracial person, the anxiety of a census form, and
it's real.
Not really feeling like, there's sort of a like, how do I accurately check the right box? Because I'm not feeling that checking a box is enough to encompass
who I am,
my identity, right? And that's what the book is really about. It's not like you are a box that you check, right?
Yeah.
And so when I was trying to come up with concepts, I think I was just thinking of all of the different ways that I, as a Black biracial person, have felt about my own identity and how society views my identity and how different communities view my identity, how I view it in relationship to those outside things. And I just kept going back to like the concept of like things being layered, things being more than what's immediately recognizable, visually like identifiable. And that's, I feel like, why so many of these designs have some element of reveal. Like there are things that are getting revealed in the design, whether it's like, this ribbon going through the design is revealing different locations, or this one is revealing the intestines are revealing color. I mean,
the guts of our pain.
That's right. So like I think these ended up being so different because there's so much about, I think, being biracial that is, multifaceted and feels very hard at times to summarize succinctly.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
always a different way of looking at it or a different way of feeling about it. And, everybody has different opinions on being biracial and what it means and how you should be, what box you should be checking. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of why they ended up being so different. It's just because I was trying to take a step back from being biracial and then walk around it a little bit, look at it from a different side, try to capture that angle of it, and then walk around it a little bit, capture that angle of it. But the through line always ended up being like layers and like this one, like I was thinking of like Venn diagrams and how you have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and all of those things are kind of coming together to reveal different colors and a whole spectrum of who you are as a person.
Yeah. No, I actually had a hard time taking this one out. But I knew that if I had more than 4 directions, I might not get the kind of clarity I needed. And I had a self-imposed deadline, which was ridiculous now that I think. I thought it was plenty of time, but it wasn't enough time. Sophia, I want to have you back to speak more clarity into this process for indie authors. And unfortunately, I have to cut this show a little bit short today. But yeah, like I said, I want to have you back. I want us to talk more about you and the kind of work that you do and your next step. But before we say goodbye, where can our listeners find you? And what's next for you?
I am on Instagram at my first and last name, all one word. And my Instagram will have my website, and I will also have a connection to I Need a Book Cover, where I have some of my work on there, but it's all kind of centrally located and accessible through my Instagram. And what's next for me is a break. It is no coincidence that a lot of the designers you reached out to said they were just too busy.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's busy, so I'm not going to claim that as my personal struggle, but I definitely have been trying to make a concerted effort to enforce in my life doing nothing.
Some space.
Yeah. And so I've been trying to put some form of blocker barrier on March, April, and May to take a break from taking on new things. No more, ooh, shiny. I want to work on that. I really want to take breaks so that I can refill my cup and be able to give creatively to the projects that I do take on. And I think that's a really important part of being any sort of creative.
Agreed.
And something that I've always very much struggled with. I tend to be the type of creative that will scrape my empty cup, wait for it to magically populate more for me. But it's something that I'm working on and trying to be more aware of.
I feel you. And I agree that actually that it is one of the core tasks of a creative is to create the space in which to create. A la Virginia Woolf, you need a room of your own, a room of one's own, to and occupy that space. It doesn't maybe have to be an actual room, but you definitely need that room in your head. And if you take on too many projects, it ain't there.
You don't have it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's exactly right.
So
I'm going to try to do that.
I fully respect that. And I will have you back on this show, but it probably won't be till June. so that you can have some of your space and we can talk a little bit more about self-care as a creative as well.
Yes.
Um, and I want to thank you from the depths of my heart for just bringing all that golden lusciousness out of my words and onto the cover. This book does feel like me and the book. So thank you so much, Sophia. And to the listeners, you can see the results of our collaboration and find more episodes on brownbeyondborders.substack.com. And I'm going to link to the 4 directions that I originally posted that we shared and talked about, only the 4 on my Substack too, if you want to check those out. So see you around.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for being here, Sophia.